We've had information, MRIs have been studied from people from Italy, England and Canada. And unfortunately, the hamstring is probably a 6-week process. So again, with Lorenzo, we'll be doing everything we can to get him back as quickly as we can, hopefully ahead of schedule. Yeah, so it'll be a big loss for us.
When you say with the MRIs, an MRI was done here in Toronto and it's been examined at other places, or he's had multiple MRIs?
No, he's had one MRI, but examined by different people. Yeah, just from the type of hamstring injury it was. It's again, it's one of those tricky ones, a little bit close to the head of the muscle. So when it's at that head, you've got to get a few opinions on it.
Is he still in town? Is he still?
Yeah, he's here. Yeah, he's actually next door there. Yeah.
So 6 weeks, that's a bit of a blow.
Oh, it's a big blow, huge blow for us. I mean, sometimes hamstrings can be 2 to 4, but again, the location of it just makes it really tricky. You have to be really careful with this one. That's why we brought the additional expertise in, people from the EPL that have worked on this type of injury, and yeah, it's a very careful return.
6 weeks isn't good, but compared to Richie, I mean, is this some sort of in the middle of what you expected? Or?
It's actually like a similar injury, just not as bad. So that's, the Richie reality has helped us understand this one a bit more as well, and hence getting multiple opinions on it. I mean, I always just look at the silver linings. The silver linings are next man up. There's guys that are being, really waiting for opportunity. If it wasn't for the injuries, we wouldn't have seen Tyrese Spicer. Jaquil's starting to find a bit of a groove as well, where he's been trusted by people in the team. And you'll see more opportunity now at the top of the box for people like Fede to play closer to goal, and I think he really benefits from being closer to goal as well. So, and then if they're back in May time, then it's like having 2 new signings, at a good time. So I keep telling myself there's a glass half full here.
Would you consider playing Spicer further up?
Well, I think with Spice, he's very vertical. Very vertical, and all the work we did in evaluating him in the NCAA, he just showed that you get the best out of him in width, and you get the best out of him, from behind to behind. It's, I think in the way that we want to play our identity, if you're playing high, you've got to be able to invert, you've got to be able to play in pockets, and he hasn't developed that as part of his profile. So we've profiled him with that verticality in mind, and we don't want to take that out of him. So again, we see him more like a Tejon Buchanan type, that, with that sort of pace, he's better to be in with, and particularly off switches of play.
Sean Johnson seemed to be doing everything out there. What's his style?
Yeah, very close, very close. Again, with Sean, it's just making sure we take every step to complete his return to play. Could be on the roster tomorrow. It's a conversation we'll have with the medical team today, because it's, like I say, he's just going through his progressions, and his progressions is he's got to hit his markers in the loading across the various, diving, kicking, acceleration. So he's close, very close, Neil.
What about Shane?
Yeah, Shane's good. He's good. Yeah, that was it was good. So he trained well today. I think for him, it's just he's gone through a bit of trauma with the head, and he was able to see a specialist this week, and it wasn't a concussion, so that's good news. And for him, it's just then going through the process of just getting the psyche mentality right to get himself set to go again.
Any other new injuries pop up?
No, it's been a bloody good week in that sense. So yeah, nothing yet. I mean, I think there was just a little clash there with Ayo and Greg Ranjit-Singh at the end there. So we'll see how them two have came out of the small-sided game. But yeah, nothing major.
What are you expecting from Kansas City? It's amazing that the two teams haven't
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why.
Well, I hear they haven't been beaten by Toronto since 2009. So I mean, that's a hell of a record. I don't think Peter Vermees has ever lost. I was listening to him yesterday. He loves coming to Toronto, he said. So,
Spoke highly of you.
oh yeah. So yeah, I mean, I mean, this is a coach that's got his team. You know, they can run on autopilot, and I think that's the exciting task we have ahead of us. So much experience in that team, and you can see when they get into a rhythm, they really get into a rhythm. Like you think you know what they're going to do because it's quite consistent, but their speed of being able to do it and their anticipation of what's coming next, they're always a step ahead of you. So no matter how much you try and prepare to take away what he does every week, they just do it so well. But what I have seen is he adapted his tactics for the Galaxy game. I think with Russell being injured, he had a midfield injury, and it forced them into a 4-2-1-3 with Pulido and Agada up front, and he doesn't usually do that. But they had some real success. And he spoke after the game, he spoke this week about the success of that approach. So, you know, he might go back to it, which is different for him. And it's, you know, you do all the work on Kansas City, and then they may show up with a different style of play. So it might work in our favour, but at the same time, you know, Agada and Pulido look very good together against the Galaxy. That'll cause us some problems.
Going back to Lorenzo, I mean, you guys had a plan with him and really looked after him in the preseason and talked about how you're going to handle him. With this injury coming now, does that cause a change in how you handle him, or is it just this is football?
Hey, a bit of everything. I mean, when we look at the antecedents behind these injuries, there's always a real deep dive nail into, could it be this, could it be that? But there's so many factors. Like when you look at Toronto's reality and we look at Lorenzo, we know that there's multiple factors will play into injury. One will be, the stress levels that players are under. You know, the more stressed, the more prone you are to injury, and that stress is the weight that you might carry of, having to perform at the highest level every week. Then you've got the change of surface. You know, there's massive amount of research to show moving from grass to turf, it increases the incidence of injury. And then for us, it's just the repetitive nature of training on turf. So not just the change of surface, it's actually training on the turf becomes, just a risk factor, particularly for players over the age of 30. It affects the joints. It requires more compensation, but more importantly, you have to deload. And then when you have to deload players, when they come to the game, they may not be ready for the full load of the game. So it's this Rubik cube that turns constantly. And then sometimes it's just down to luck, that he got pushed slightly and landed awkwardly. That was Richie Laryea. When you look at his injury, he got pushed in the back, and he said, if I'd just fallen over like I normally would have, I wouldn't have got injured. But he tried to stay up, and that's when it sort of went. So it's a multitude of factors. But what I have to say is the medical team with Lowe, they've put a lot of work in. The diligence that goes in there is at a very good level. And we had some kinks at the beginning of the year. There were definitely some kinks in the system, but over the last month and a half, I'd say we brought Greg Bain, who's one of the best in the country at what he does, to work one-on-one with Lorenzo. So there's been no stone left unturned. His doctor in Italy, who's worked with him since he was sort of 8-9-year-old, is always in constant contact with our people. So he's 33. I mean, I think that's a reality. When players sort of hit those twilight years, it's not easy to keep them fresh, and we've been pushing them.
John, could it be maybe something gone wrong in something you guys did that has to be adjusted in preseason? Just because it's 3 sort of hamstring injuries,
Yeah.
like pretty early on. So I mean, could it be something that you have to sort of look at something you did in preseason camp and look
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing that, John. We've genuinely been looking at the pre-season realities, but you've also got to look at recruitment. You've got to look at, like I say, change of surface, change of climate. All of these other factors come into it. So we definitely are looking at the medical processes, but we're trying to look at it holistically. Like, if you're going to recruit certain types of players, then you've got to expect certain challenges that come with those players. So, we played against an Atlanta team last week that was a very young team, and they're not carrying injuries. I mean, that's just part of some of the recruitment process, but also our realities of being in Canada, what we have to deal with that maybe some other teams don't. So, yeah, there's definitely some medical elements going on, but, I think Lowe specifically in terms of his pre-season, coming back to Canada and their reaction to turf, set him back in terms of a genuine pre-season. So, yeah, we'll keep looking.
I know Fede hasn't scored or picked up an assist, but he's been pretty impressive.
Yeah.
He's leads the team in shots on target and key passes as well.
Yeah.
What's been your sort of impression of him?
Yeah, just another level. I think taking on a genuine leadership responsibility in the team has helped just elevate all elements of his performance. So I watch him around the dressing room. He's dealing with the day-to-day things that maybe he didn't deal with last year. He's on top of different personalities in the group. In training, he sets the standard. So every day he's turning up, and you can just see he's putting a shift in, whether he's playing against TFC2 players. And even just the other day, I caught him. I took a little video because he's coaching Kobe Franklin on his crossing, He took him for 10 minutes at the end. And, yeah, he's just really invested, really dialed into something bigger than him, I think. And it's manifesting in his performances.
So is good to go?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll have to just make sure that we have the conversation again from today. We monitor whether he's hit markers today and whether the medical team are comfortable with him starting tomorrow. So you'll have to wait and see on that.
And on a different topic, John, there's been a lot of stories recently in different sports on gambling and issues with players. Presumably MLS talks to your players. I'm wondering, is it a topic that has come up with the club in terms of speaking to the players about it, especially given the news with other players?
Yeah, at the beginning of the season, I think MLS do a great job of educating the players. I think we had 4 different seminars on 4 different topics, and one of those topics was the gambling element. So there's definitely an education there. There's no way there's any player in MLS currently that doesn't know that you can't be doing those things. There's no ignorance to that at all. It's very clear.
John, was there any sort of, getting back to Oso, was there any sort of pushback from Canada Soccer? Because he did...
Yeah, he was in the squad, yeah.
So he ended up playing. So, I mean, and presumably, the argument goes if he was fit to play for you guys, then he should have been fit to play for you.
Yeah, it's a non-argument. I mean, anyone that's bringing that up or questioning Ozo's integrity or anyone's integrity, the conversations between Canada Soccer and Toronto FC were very clear, very clear. Ozo missed our game at the weekend, the previous weekend. He was unfit. He was still at high risk at that time, returning from an injury. The conversation that went on between our medical team, their medical team, and the head coach was, at this moment in time, he's on a return to play. He could be back for the weekend, but not guaranteed. He can't train Monday, Tuesday. His return to training will be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for a ramp-up. Canada Soccer were very clear that any player reporting had to be available for full training on the Monday and the Tuesday. and therefore a decision was made by Canada Soccer not to bring Jonathan in. We did offer that if he was hitting his markers at Toronto FC by Thursday, we would send him to the Canadian soccer camp, but that was it was a no-go. They wanted it clear that they needed people for tactical training for the full week. So any of that stuff was a load of rubbish. Yeah.
Forrest came back unscathed.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. Davey's back. He's going to add that depth to the midfield now. So yeah, we'll see what the lineup looks like tomorrow.
John, it's obviously still a work in progress, the overall team, but I mean it's 4 clean sheets in 5 games and it's 10 points from 15 out of 15. Is it where you thought it would be at this point? Are you ahead of schedule, kind of what you thought it would be?
Well, where we started from last season with still 75% of that squad had taken the minutes for these 5 games, I would say if you were just an armchair fan, you'd say we're well ahead of schedule. But internally, we set some goals, John. We've got this phase 3 is 10 games, and getting to that halfway point, we have a points per game marker that we wanted to stay on course with. Winning last week at home was critical to our success, and we're right on track to where this team have set their goals. Whether that's what are the pundits or the supporters think or feel, but yeah, we're on track to where we want to be by the end of the season.
Apart from the octagon, you haven't really had a table to kind of pay attention to. You find yourself avoiding it, looking at the table.
No, I love it. The players they've set their points markers, so it was a big talking point. I mentioned this last week in the media. It was a huge talking point of where we were on the points track. We were on 1.75 points per game last week after the loss to New York, and for me it was an inflection point where if we lost the game against Atlanta, you would have probably went in a off track for the first time, but we got the win, and it put us on that 2 points per game, which it's a pretty good clip in MLS. You're heading towards the top 4 if you can maintain that sort of standard. So, and given the squad has had a lot of injuries and there's been a lot of turnovers, and this guy's been available for only 45 minutes, and we haven't been able to bring in all the players we would like to prior to pre-season. I mean, they've done well, this group, the staff, the players. I think everyone's bound together in commitment to building trust.
DeAndre and Prince both had very good weeks. I'm sure they had a good week of competing. Is that made for a bit of a headache in a good way for you?
Yeah, I think you're right to raise that. I mean, Prince has been toiling away. We celebrated on Monday when we got back in together as a team his goal, because it's been a long time coming. He did a nice little speech to the team thanking them for their patience. But it was a proud moment seeing him score, because I see him toiling every day in training. He works so hard, he's so professional. And, to see DK start ahead of him last week would have been tough, So he responded well. So I've got a good problem with my selection, but what I do know is I can start and finish the game strong. I think Prince finished that Charlotte game strong. I thought he had a big impact, and he definitely finished this game very strong as well. So 2 good options.